Hello folks, welcome to another part in this hybrid zombie shooter tutorial course. Today we're going to take a look at how to set up our zombies, their blueprint, and also a simple animation blueprint using interfaces for the zombies to randomly choose a animation from our list of animations that we created in our previous tutorial series and run them. Thank you again for stopping by, and if this tutorial series is helping you in any way, consider hitting that like button and also subscribing, as it allows the channel to grow and reach out to more developers just like you. Thank you again for stopping by, and let's go take a look at how to get this done. Open up your content drawer. Inside of the enemy system, let's create a new folder and name this Blueprints. Open this up and then create a new Blueprint class, and this would be of character component, because we need that character movement component to move the zombies around the map and reach the player and such. We're going to name this BP underscore zombies underscore base. We're going to use this blueprint to spawn in all the types of zombies that we're going to potentially have in our game. And I'm also going to create a new enumeration to list out all the types of zombies that we can have. So this would be E underscore zombie types. Open this up. And the first type would be our general zombie. And the second type would be a gas zombie. Then we should have like a screamer zombie. And we should also have one of those runners who runs really quick at you, right? And so on. We will add more as we see fit. But that's it for now. Because I want to start visualizing it in the map already, I'm going to go to my top perspective here on the plane. I'm going to drag and drop this blueprint in there. Let's make sure that it's not floating first. All right. So we have a whole bunch of those zombies spread around the map. Now, the first thing that we want to do is to make sure that our mesh component is set down by 89 points. So the actual model feet is touching the base of this capsule component. And we want to make this rotation minus 90. So the skeleton is, or the mesh is facing the arrow. So for example, if I go ahead and select any of this model here, you would notice that it's facing the right direction and the feet is at the bottom of the capsule. Let's go ahead into our construction script and we're going to build out our zombie model from here. First, we need a variable. We need our zombie type variable. And this is going to be of type E underscore zombie types. This is our enumeration that we just created. Let's make this instance editable and expose on spawn, compile and save it. Now the first thing I want to do is drag in my mesh and then say set skeletal mesh asset. Make sure you're selecting the function, not the variable. And now we need to set up the skeletal mesh. So we're going to create a function to take care of that. The function would be get underscore zombie model. And here I'm going to drag in my zombie type and then do a switch function. And currently we're only working with the general zombie, and we downloaded a whole bunch of the zombie models and they're all going to be for the general zombie purpose. So I'm going to drag off of this general zombie and say get data table row names and select our zombie model as the table. And here I want to get a random model. So I'm going to go ahead and search for random array item and drag off of this execution pin and say get data table row singular, and then connect this row name in here and then also select the zombie model table here. And the return value, the out row, we're going to go ahead and break it. And the skeletal mesh is what we're going to return it. So off of row found, we're going to go ahead and do a return node. Drag the skeletal mesh and then plug it in here. And just like that. We don't need to do anything else. So back in our construction script, we can go ahead and drag in our zombie model. Let's make this a pure function. And then connect the skeletal mesh here just like this. Now what this will do is if I go ahead and compile and save it, and if I minimize, you'll see the skeletal mesh populating everywhere. I know they're all facing that direction, but it doesn't really matter. But you can see there are randomized zombie models popped up. So let's continue. Now we need to define the animation for the zombie model. So drag in your mesh again, and then we're going to set anim instance class. We don't really have an animation blueprint for the zombies yet. Let's go ahead and make it. So go to your content drawer, right click, animation, animation blueprint. And remember, we selected zombie girl as the base skeleton for all of our Mixamo models. So we're going to select zombie girl here and then create it. This would be ABP underscore zombie underscore general. We're going to have different animation blueprint for different zombies. So this is going to be the animation blueprint for the general zombies. Let's open this up. And for the output pose, I'm going to first create a state machine. And this would be named as locomotion. And connect this in here. Open this up, and we're going to have a very simple logic for this, or very simple animations for this. It's going to have an idle animation, and it's going to have a walk animation. When the zombie attacks, we're going to use an animation montage to do that attack animation. And then we're also going to have a death animation that will be a montage as well. So drag off of this entry, and we're going to create a new state, and this would be our idle state. Drag off of this idle, and then add in a new state, and this would be walk/run. Compile and save it. Now, the warning sign is that we haven't really defined the transition, so the transition will never take place. That's what the warning says, right? So we get to go ahead and take care of the transition. We're going to go to event graph, and where we have our event blueprint update animation. And right below it, you should see try get pawn owner. If you don't have it, you can make one. Drag off of this return value, and then we're going to get our movement component. We're going to drag off of this movement component and look for is moving on ground. Now this node, what it does is it's going to utilize the nav mesh component, which we're going to put into our map in just a moment. But it's going to take a look at the nav mesh component and see if the owner of this animation blueprint, which is going to be our zombie base, is that blueprint moving on ground. If yes, then it's going to say yes as a Boolean. If not, it's going to say false. And we're going to just drag off of this and promote to variable. And we're going to name this as is moving. And set this off of our event blueprint update animation. This is like an event tick. It's going to run every frame. And back in our locomotion, we're going to double click on this transition, and we're going to drag this is moving and then plug it in here and then compile. Now that warning should go away, and it should allow us to move from idle to walk and run and such. But now we need to plug in our actual animation for idle and actual animation for walk and run. Let's open up with the idle. Now I don't want to drag in one animation and plug it in here, because if you remember in our database, we created a whole slew of animations for idle and also a whole list of animation for walking as well. So we want to randomly pick one of these animations and then make it play in our animation blueprint. To do that, we're going to right click here, and then we're going to search for something called a sequence player. And then we're going to connect this sequence player to the output animation pose like this, and then extend this details panel on the right side here. And where you have sequence under settings, you should have sequence. This is where usually you will select the animation and stuff like that. But we want to make this into a variable. So under this bind, click on the bind, and then we're going to expose this as a pin. So what this will do is it'll expose a pin for us to insert an animation sequence into this player, which will then be our output animation pose. So we're going to drag off of this sequence, and we're going to promote this to a variable, call this idle_anim. And then we're going to do the same thing for walk run as well. Create a sequence player. Connect this to the output and select this bind, and we're going to expose a pin and then drag off of this, and we're going to promote this to a variable. And this sequence, we're going to name this as walk_anim. Compile and save it. Now we need to go ahead and define this idle animation and also the walk animation. And we're going to use interface to communicate the idle animation and the walk animation from our zombie blueprint base. So go to your content drawer, core folder, interfaces. We're going to create a new blueprint interface, and we're going to name this BPI_zombies. Open this up, and our new function, this is going to be setup_animation. That's going to be the function name. It's going to have two input. One is for the idle anim, and the other one is going to be for the walk_anim. Both of these would be of type anim sequence. And this would be a object reference. Same thing here, anim sequence, and it's an object reference. Compile and save it. In our zombie base, create a new function, and this would be get underscore zombie idle anims. And here we're going to drag in our zombie type, get, and off of this again, we're going to do a switch function. And we're going to work off of general zombie for now. We're going to do the same thing as we did for the models. We're going to first get our data table row names, and then this is going to be for our idle animation. So we need to search for idle, and there's your zombie idle table with all of the zombie idle animations in there. And off of the out row, we want to randomize it. So all the zombies are not using the same animation. We try to variate our animation as best as we can, but we only have so much animations to work with. But in your game, if you're willing to invest that extra money, you can always have variety of animations that the zombies could play. Now, off of your get data table row names, we can go ahead and say get data table row and connect the row name here from the random array, and then set this to the zombie idle table. And this is going to give us a random animation from one of this 18 that we have. And then off of the out row, we want to now go ahead and break it. And this animation is now going to be connected to our return node. Just like this. And we can actually name this as idle animation. Compile and save it. And we're going to go ahead and right click and then duplicate this. And then we're going to rename this to the zombie walk anims. And the only thing that we need to change here is the table. We want to go from the walk idle table to the walk table for both of these. And the return node, we're just going to rename from idle animation to walk animation. And we're going to create a new function. This would be get underscore zombie underscore ABP. This would be zombie animation blueprint. And we're going to do the zombie types here and do a get, and then drag off of this, and we're going to do a select, not switch node. We usually do a switch, but we're doing a select here. And then drag off of this execution and do a return node here. And right click on this general zombie, and then we're going to change the pin type, and then select the wildcard and search for anim instance, and then choose the anim instance and make it a class reference, not an object reference like we normally do, a class reference. And the return value is going to be connected to the return node here, just like so. And this would be our ABP, animation blueprint. And for the general zombie, we need to select this ABP zombie general. So drop down and click on ABP zombie general. When we make the rest of the zombies, we will select their respective animation class for their zombies. Now back in our construction script, we're going to get our zombie ABP. Let's make this a pure function as well. And then connect this to our anim instance class. Compile it. And then off of our event graph, we're going to go and search for event possessed. Here, we're going to get our mesh component and say get anim instance. And off of this node, we're going to set up our animation. We should actually go back to this and then rename this to say something like zombies. So it would be underscore zombies underscore animation, set up zombies animation, right? So it makes it specific to zombies. And let's go ahead and connect the execution pin here. And we need to plug in an idle animation and a walk animation. And this is where the other two functions that we just created. The idle animation, again, make it pure function. And then plug in the idle animation. And the walk animation, we're going to make it pure as well. And then plug in this walk animation. Compile and save. Now, in our animation blueprint, we need to implement that interface. So go to your class settings, implemented interfaces. Search for BPI underscore zombies. And you should now, in your interface, you should see set up zombies animation. Double click on it to open up the event. And here we're going to drag in the idle animation, plug it in here, and the walk animation, plug it in here. And we'll just need to plug in this respective pins from our interfaces. Let's go ahead and compile and save it. And the last thing that we're going to do is in our editor, we're going to select this quickly, add to the project icon here, and then select the volumes, nav mesh bounce volume. And basically what this volume does, it creates path tracing for the AI to follow so they can get to their destination. So if you press P while having this nav mesh bounce volume selected, you'll see that it creates a little green overlay on top of your floor. This indicates a good spot for the AI to walk over. So all we need to do is just stretch this out so it fits your entire arena. Now you can see the entire floor space is within this nav mesh volume, and it's also green. That indicates that all the zombies can now walk on it. And the last function that we want to do here is to make the zombies go towards the player. Again, this is going to be a simple function for now, just to make sure that everything is working fine. Once we are ready to create our blackboard, we will actually change this function. So for testing purposes, in our event begin play, I'm going to drag off of this and say AI move to. And here, the pawn would be self. The target actor would be get player character. The acceptable radius, I'm just going to put it to like 10. On success, I want them to delay about 1 second. And then after completed, I want them to continue moving again. How this works in game is if I go ahead and press play, you will see all the zombies are like rushing at me. And once they stop, they try to rush me again, and things happen. So one thing that I do notice is that the zombies are really, really fast. So on the character component, we're going to go ahead and search for max walk speed. I'm going to set the max walk speed to 50, and then let's go ahead and play. And that looks pretty good. The zombies are moving. The animation's working according to their walk speed, which looks good. Oh, hello. That looks great. And if I were to run around, you would see the zombies are going to turn around, and then they will start following me everywhere I go. The next step is obviously for me to start firing at them and doing damage, which we will take care of in our next video. All right, folks, so that's all I wanted to show today, is to create the zombie blueprint and also the zombie animation and do some basic function to get the zombies moving around. So, the entire area comes alive, right? So thank you very much for stopping by today, and I really do appreciate your time. If this video had helped you in any way, please consider hitting that like button and or subscribing, as I have more and more videos in this tutorial course coming up soon. Thank you again for stopping by, and I'll catch you all in the next one.